The Enlightenment is a period in the history of Western thought and culture, stretching roughly from the mid-decades of the 17th century through the 18th century, characterized by dramatic revolutions in science, philosophy, society, and politics. These revolutions swept away the medieval worldview and ushered in our modern Western world. Enlightenment thought culminates historically in the political upheaval of the French Revolution, in which the traditional hierarchical political and social orders were violently destroyed and replaced by political and social order informed by the Enlightenment ideals of freedom and equality for all, founded upon principles of human reason. The Enlightenment begins with the scientific revolution of the 16th and 17th centuries. The rise of the new science progressively undermines not only the ancient geocentric conception of the cosmos, but with it the entire set of presuppositions that had served to constrain and guide philosophical inquiry. Isaac Newton's epical accomplishment in his Principia Mathematica, 1687, consists in the comprehension of a diversity of physical phenomena, in particular the motions of heavenly bodies together with the motions of sublunary bodies, and few relatively simple, universally applicable mathematical laws was a great stimulus to the intellectual activity of the 18th century. Newton's system strongly encourages the Enlightenment conception of nature as an orderly domains governed by strict mathematical, dynamical laws, and the conception of ourselves as capable of knowing those laws and thus plumbing the secrets of nature through the exercise of our unaided faculties. Before the Enlightenment, the educational system was not yet greatly influenced by the scientific revolution. As the scientific revolution broke the traditional views at that time, religion and superstition were replaced by reasoning and scientific facts. Philosophers such as John Locke proposed the idea that knowledge is obtained through sensation and reflection. This proposition led into Locke's theory that everyone has the same capacity of sensation, and education should not be restricted to a certain class or gender. Prior to the 17th and 18th century, literacy was generally restricted to males who belonged in the categories of nobles, mercantiles, and professional classes. The writings of the late 17th century empiricist John Locke on philosophy, government, and education were especially influential during the Enlightenment. In the field of education, Locke is significant both for his general theory of knowledge and for his ideas on the education of youth. Locke's empiricism, expressed in his notion that ideas originate in experience, was used to attack the doctrine that principles of reason are innate in the human mind. In an essay concerning human understanding, 1690, Locke argued that ideas come from two fountains of experience: sensation, through which the senses convey perceptions into the mind, and reflection, whereby the mind works with the perceptions, forming ideas. Locke thought of the mind as a blank tablet prior to experience, but he did not claim that all minds are equal. In some thoughts concerning education, 1693, he insisted that some minds have a greater intellectual potential than others. For education, Locke's empiricism meant that learning comes about only through experience. Education, which Locke felt should address both character and intellect, is therefore best achieved by providing the pupil with examples of proper thought and behavior, by training the child to witness and share in the habits of virtue that are part of the conventional wisdom of the rational and practical man. Pietists emphasize Christian devotion and diligence as paths to the good life. Enlightenment thinkers focused on reason and clear thinking as a sensible way to happiness. Rousseau and his followers were intrigued by an elusive ideal: naturalism. Rousseau, in his A Discourse on Inequality, an account of the historical development of the human race, distinguished between natural men, men as formed by nature, and social men, men as shaped by society. He argued that good education should develop the nature of man. Yet Rousseau found that mankind has not one nature but several. Man originally lived in a pure state of nature, but was altered by changes beyond control and took on a different nature. This nature in turn was changed as man became social. The creation of the arts and sciences caused man to become less pure, more artificial, and egoistic, and man's egoistic nature prevents him from regaining the simplicity of original human nature. Emily, his major work on education, describes an attempt to educate a simple and pure natural child for life in a world from which social man is estranged. Emily is removed from man's society to a literal society inhabited only by the child and his tutor. Social elements enter the literal society through the tutor's knowledge. When the tutor thinks, Emily can learn something from them. Rousseau's aim is to show how a natural education, unlike the artificial and formal education of society, enables Emily to become social, moral, and rational while remaining true to his original nature. Because Emily is educated to be a man, not a priest, a soldier, or an attorney, he will be able to do what is needed in any situation. His dramatic portrayal of the estrangement of natural man from society influenced such contemporary thinkers as Immanuel Kant and continues to intrigue philosophers and social scientists. His ideal that teachers must see things as children do inspired Pestalozzi and has endured as a much imitated ideal. Finally, his emphasis on understanding the child's nature had a profound influence by creating interest in the study of child development, inspiring the work of such psychologists as G. Stanley Hall and Jean Piaget. The overall literacy for the general public increased for both men and women during the 18th century. However, there was a difference in the type of education that each gender received. During the 18th century, there was an increase in the number of girls being sent to schools for education, especially the daughters of middle-class families whom wanted to provide them an aristocratic education. During the 18th century, the increase in coffee houses, clubs, academies, and Masonic lodges became alternative places where people could become educated. In England, coffee houses became a new public space where political, philosophical, and scientific discourses were being discussed. The first coffee house in Britain was established in Oxford in 1650, and the number of coffee houses expanded around Oxford.